Kia ora tātou katoa. Off the bat, I'm just going to go off the script because I was back there and I was watching those highlights and I was just thinking, I'm actually really old in those highlights. My average age in those highlights, I think I'm about 35. And I know you're thinking I only look 27. But then I thought, why? Why have they got those like old-ass highlights? And then I thought, because for a big chunk of my career, probably 12 plus years in the black jersey, we never had highlights reels. We never had live stream. We never were on TV. And the reason for that is because society deemed wahine and sport wasn't worthy to be put on TV screens. Wahine and sport, what it felt like was that we didn't matter. But to me, we did matter because sport was life. Sport is what saved my life. Now, I have to admit, when I got the tono from the tuahine rea ho to come and be a kai kōrero tonight for the M9, my first reaction was like, wow, Ria's messaging me. Second reaction was like, oh, hell no. I hate public speaking. And for some people that might be a shock because I'm on the TV screens commentating, presenting for rugby and rugby league every weekend, doing the All Blacks, doing the Warriors, up the wars, and often making predictions like, this is our year. Surprised I haven't lost my job. But I think back, and public speaking is probably one of my biggest fears. But it also reminds me of when the book company hit me up about writing a book. And again, my first reaction was, oh, hell no. People will freak out if they knew the real honey. But I did it anyway. I want to start my kōrero by acknowledging my uncle. My uncle passed away 2 weeks ago. You see that? Karl, hit the pipe, I'll carry on. And he passed away from having a stroke at his second home, his beloved home, which was the Mount Maunganui CrossFit gym. And they flew him up here to the Auckland hospital. And it's probably one of the worst feelings that you get when you're told that one of your whānau is not doing so well. And as our whānau do, we all race to the bedside. And I remember it was only 24 hours he'd been in the hospital and they told us that there wasn't anything that they could do for him. They could only keep him comfortable. And I was standing next to his bed and I was assisting the nurses to reposition my uncle. And I was holding him in my arms. And at that time, I witnessed my uncle take his last breaths. And it's a moment in my heart and my mind that I'll cherish forever. My uncle was a CrossFit legend. He's one of 11 siblings, a younger brother to my mum. And it brings me small comfort to know that he's now with my mum, looking over us. He was a man of very few words, but he showed us all the power of selflessness and service to others. His happy place was on the moana, constantly providing kai moana to anybody that needed it back home. Hoki wairu atu ki tō Māngai uncle. So I talked about the book, and I want to set this up right, because we weren't allowed to bring out notes, so I thought I'll just read from the book. So I'm going to start with back in the day. And what I'm going to do is just read the first line from chapter 1. And it reads like this. Chapter 1. Mum always told me and my brothers that we were born in a pool of alcohol. She just walked out of the pub and gave birth to us. She wasn't lying, actually. I want to talk about back in the day where it all started for us. This is cheeky little honey. I'm 7 years old. Next to me is my brother Buddy, and in the back row is my other little brother Quinton. This is me in my prime. It might be hard to tell, but I am a girl, and I'm the only girl in this photo. But don't let that little innocent smile fool you, because me and that brother, we were mischief to the bone. We grew up in a place that lots of people call paradise. Yes, Pūtāraru. And the sport field was our happy place. There wasn't much else to do in Pūtāraru, so, we played every sport available to us. I think, though, what that photo doesn't show is a reflection of what I read to you out of my book. Our house was filled with domestic violence. And what that smile doesn't show you is the pain, the frustration, the fear that we grew up with as kids. When you watch your two parents, the people that you love the most, hurt each other. So if I fast forward to 17-year-old honey, this is me in my teenage years. Again, that's me front and centre. Undercut, waka blonde hair, and dreadlocks. Yuck. Now the thing with this photo though, is it's the same day I walked out of the Tupuria courthouse being charged for assault. I got off lightly. I had to pay the dentistry bills for the wahine that I had hurt. I also got supervision, but my lawyer that day told the judge that it was a one-off altercation. That was a lie. She also told the judge that I was an up-and-coming promising athlete. Now, I'd already made a name for myself around town as the town bully. I used alcohol and drugs to dim the mamai that I was feeling. I was angry. I was an angry, young, confused kohine, just mad at the world. But the one thing that I remember from that day is the disappointment on my nanny's face and my mum's face as I stood in that courthouse dock. That was a turning point for me. So again, I fast forward to 20 years. This is me at 37-year-old. This is me in my happy place. This is me after playing in 7 World Cups across rugby, rugby league, rugby sevens, and rugby league nines. This is 18 years of representing in the black jersey. I won a few awards, lost a few as well, won a whole lot of titles, lost a few as well. But here, this is my happy place. This is me standing with my niece, Levi, my beautiful wife, Rochelle, and my papa. This is me going back home, standing on my whenua. My kōrero tonight is really about how I navigated some of those challenges that I faced. Things like, as a sports star, dealing with non-selection and rejection, the insecurity and anxiety that I felt, injuries, I dealt with death and grief quite often. Anybody know what a honey badger is? I'm not talking about that Australian rugby player that runs around in his undies on the warehouse ad either. I know Tyler knows what it is. A honey badger is one of the most feared animals in the animal kingdom. It's known for its strength and ferocity. We have that fight, flight, and freeze mode, right? The honey badger doesn't have the freeze or the flight mode. It only has the fight mode. So back in the New Zealand Sevens, the Black Fern Sevens, when we were preparing for Rio Olympics, our coaches used this animal to model the mentality that they wanted us to play with aggression. They wanted us to win at all costs. They wanted us to be uncompromising and be absolutely fearless. I quite liked it because it was named after me. And I was a pretty angry person. I want to just talk about a couple of game changers for me. Some of the two main key drivers that I used in my life to, I suppose, determine my own destiny. First off is really simple, love what I do. I've never shifted away from that. I love absolutely everything about being out on the field, about being in a team environment, about a sisterhood, about the challenge, about facing pressure out on the field when you're 1 point down, you've got one run to go. I love the whānau connection that we had as a team and working towards a common goal. I also love to win, and I don't shy away from that. I'm competitive to the bone, always have been. Doesn't matter if I'm playing in a World Cup or racing my 6 and 7-year-old nieces and nephews to the car. I'll throw them out of the way and I will beat them. I think loving to win is a powerful motivator for growth and development. The second game changer for me is leaning into my Māoritanga. When I was at school, I grew up through Kohanga reo, got to primary school, was in the whānau unit, or the kura reo, got to high school, te reo Māori was the first subject that I picked. But unfortunately, I was told that learning te reo Māori won't get you a job. It didn't matter though, because I continued to lean into my Māoritanga. The lessons that you learn on the sports field reflect the lessons and the tikanga that we grew up with. The tikanga around respecting your elders, around manaakitanga for our tamariki. And the most important one that I held on to was always around whānau. Whānau was at the core of everything that we did, and you took that into your team environments. For me, it was about learning your role within your whānau, learning your role within your team, and how to work towards a common goal. Whānau has always been my why, and making them proud. Oh, I'm time up. Oh well, better wrap with the book then, eh? I do want to just kōrero and wrap with the book because for me, the book wasn't just about sharing my story, but it was more about owning my truth. Often I think our biggest enemy is the one in our head. And what the book taught me was that vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness. I encourage everybody here to share your story. I'm not defined by any single chapter in my book, but I do take pride in how I've weaved those chapters together to determine my own destiny. Sport has been the platform, and I encourage you all to nurture your mauri, to tell your story and stand in your mana. I want to finish by reading one small part out of the book. If you want to hear the rest, go to the warehouse and buy one. To anyone who doesn't have it all together, but keeps putting one foot in front of the other, I walk with you. Keep going. Iti nei. Take small steps, little by little, it can be done. Kia ora tātou katoa, tēnei te mihi atu ki a koutou.
Ko te reo, te take.